Why is the Force connecting us?
Welcome to the Star Wars podcast where analysis, insight, and shipping come hand in hand.
You're not alone.
Neither are you.
This is the Reylo Alliance.
Hello everyone, welcome once again to the Reylo Alliance. I'm your host Gina, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Andy and Fer. Hi guys, how are you?
Hi everyone.
Well, just before anything else, I just want to say that unfortunately Grisha is not with us today because she was very busy with very important matters such as going to see Jason Momoa playing Aquaman. So she's not available today.
Way to throw her off. Way to throw shade.
Oh no, it's fine. No, I'm not throwing shade. Like I totally I get her, and it's totally fine. But we are recording this right now because we have such a history with this podcast. As you know, the reason that we recorded this actually months ago, but the audio file was kind of like it was a mess with the audio file, and we tried for months to fix it, and then we couldn't, and then we gave up, and we're like, okay, we need to record it again, and then like now is the time that we all had the time to get together and talk about it again. So yeah, that's why it took so long. So we're sorry about that, but now we are doing it right, and we're finally getting it to you. So yay!
Yay!
So before we start, do you have anything you want to say, like any news that have come out that you are excited about, or something? It's been a while.
I don't know. It's just that we are kind of just 1 year ahead of 1 year before episode 9, and it finally feels like we're finally like getting close to it, because it's always been like, oh, it's more than a year that it comes out, and I don't know.
And I feel like this year is gonna pass so fast because we wanna have news in April, I think, and there are people who are saying there's gonna be a teaser in this month. But I don't know. I think it's gonna be until April.
I think it's going to be like kind of a teaser or something for the Super Bowl, but not big. I think it's just gonna be the title or something.
Yeah, I have total big speculation that we're gonna get the title in January because we got the Last Jedi title around January. So I think maybe next month we will have a title, so we will know what episode 9 will be called. And yeah, I totally agree with Fer that I think 2019, sorry, is gonna fly by because we're gonna keep getting news and news and news and news, and
Yeah,
it's gonna be like very exciting. Like first we're gonna get the title, then we're gonna get some posters, and then we're gonna get a trailer, and then we're gonna get another trailer, and then yeah, just it's gonna be very fun, very heartbreaking. Like I'm not totally sure I'm ready for the for the emotional year that's ahead of us.
It's going to
Because,
be a great year for Star Wars.
It is because it's not just episode 9, but I think The Mandalorian is also coming next year, right?
Yes,
yeah.
CFO.
Yes.
Yeah, and all these books are coming out, and yeah, it's gonna be a great. Oh, also Galaxy's Edge is gonna open at Disneyland and Disney World, so it's gonna be a great freaking year for Star Wars fans.
And Clone
It's
Wars.
gonna be a blast. Oh, Clone Wars is coming back, right? Andy and I are just watching Clone Wars, and we just got to watch the Mortis arc, and my God, it was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry it took us so long, but wow, it's really great. If any of you have not seen Clone Wars, like watch it. I know it's a bit boring at the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, but once you hit season 3, it's so good. It's so good. It's so worth it. So yeah, that's it for that.
I'm just
So,
going to say that. Okay, another thing before we start. Gina and I just had a Star Wars marathon, but like chronologically, and we had never done that since Rogue One and Solo came out. So it was a blast. A lot of things changed in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a fucking blast. Like I had never enjoyed the prequels so much. I tweeted about this, but like the fact that 1 year ago I was like so anti-prequel. I was like, no, the prequels suck. The prequels are garbage, and nothing good came out of them. And now 1 year later, I'm like, no, you know what? The prequels were trying to say something. They were aiming to and be something, and they did it. And maybe it's not well executed. It's deeply flawed. Don't get me wrong, but I can appreciate the prequels for what they are right now. And I feel totally okay with it, and I'm just glad that I can enjoy the prequels now, and especially like now that we saw it, back to back, it really pays off.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but watching them, because we watched them chronologically, so we started with the Phantom Menace and we ended with the Last Jedi, and you can see how the special effects have progressed and how uh, the storytelling is different in each trilogy, and that Rogue One and Solo really stand out on their own, and it's really fascinating. And I really want to do that again.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Look, preparing for episode 9 next year or something.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yep. So I think that's it. I think we can move on to today's topic. And as we said, we recorded this months ago, but then yeah, we had some trouble, so we're recording again. So right now we're gonna talk about Reylo, of course, as always, but we're gonna talk about him and we're gonna talk about the cinematic tropes and cinematic, I don't know, motifs that happen in movies in general, throughout movie history, that kind of lead lead to Reylo. I don't know if I'm explaining myself, but some of these movies really have that Reylo feeling. It's something that we can point out and say, oh, this is how we can predict that Reylo will become canon, because look at these couples in other movies that have gone through the exact same story beats that Reylo is going through. So, this is kind of a look on Reylo through by other movies glasses. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No, you're totally making sense.
Okay, so we actually have 5 parts to this episode. It's Beauty and the Beast, Phantom of the Opera, The Villainous, Crossroad, Enemies to Lovers, and Anidala. So I'm really excited to talk about like all of this. So without further ado, we better start. So the first part is Beauty and the Beast. And first of all, I just want to point out to Madame Machina's episode on Beauty and the Beast. It's fantastic, and I listened to it like 2 times in a row because I just loved it so much, and there's so much in it to grasp and to really absorb and think about. So go listen to Madame Machina's episode on Beauty and the Beast. It's fantastic, and that really inspired us. It inspired me to talk about Beauty and the Beast and Reylo. So Beauty and the Beast is a tale as old as time. Sorry, that was cheesy, but it is a tale as old as time. It's based on a novel from like years ago, centuries ago, and it was made into a movie in 1946. And yeah, it's a story that's been told a lot of times and on different media, and most famously in Beauty and the Beast by Disney in 1992. So the gist of the story, as we all know, is
91.
oh, sorry, 1991. Yeah, you're totally right. So the gist of the story is a beautiful maiden who ends up as a prisoner in a beast castle or lair, and at first they don't know how to deal with this beast because on the outside they're very rough, they're very animalistic and aggressive, but once they spend time with them, they start to realize that the beast is not really a beast, it's just the form that they take, but inside they're kind of these really broken souls with a lot of problems, but with also a lot of compassion and feelings. And so the maidens tend to empathize with the beasts in the end, and they end up falling in love with them. And that's the general story, and in all of the Beauty and the Beast versions. And that's kind of what we are seeing with Reylo. I don't know what you guys think. What's your favorite Beauty and the Beast version that you've seen or read?
Well, I can start with this because Beauty and the Beast by Walt Disney Animation Studios is my favorite movie, second favorite movie. But I also have a lot of respect for the Beauty and the Beast tale as well. And I actually really love the version of Jack Cocteau, if that sounds pretentious or something. Um, it's just a really well made movie by itself, and it just broke a lot of ground in every aspect. And also, I think that is the version that is most aligned with Reylo and what we are talking about today. And I think that is because of kind of the subtleties in the themes that it manages. For example, the Cocteau version talks about um, this maiden, and mostly about her realization of her own identity and independence, and it and the things that she likes. Maybe those things aren't as common as other people's likings, and it may be odd. So it's kind of her sexual awakening in that kind of matter. Like the last episode, we talk about that in more depth.
I think that's very interesting because, you know, as a kid, I grew up thinking of Beauty and the Beast as just a tale about, oh, don't judge a book by its covers. And it's definitely it. Like, it's there, but that's not everything. And that's not the only meaning that you can get from Beauty and the Beast. And definitely, I totally agree with what you say that the original tale and the 1946 version are definitely more geared towards that other meaning that you're talking about. That it's not just about not judging a book by its cover, but it's actually about the female lead and how the beast is actually a metaphor for all these kind of sinful and not correct desires that a female can, get that society deems like wrong. But the maiden ends up realizing that those wishes, those desires, are not really wrong, and they're part of her, and she ends up coming to terms with that and embracing the darkness within her by embracing the darkness in the beast. And that's basically the gist of Beauty and the Beast in that level.
and
And
she
I, yeah.
and she wins because of that, because she embraced who she is, and she just ends up with a castle and a prince and a lot of
Yeah.
jewels and stuff. So great.
Jewels and servants. And yeah, handsome prince is always handy. um, so yeah, I do really love that story, and I do think it relates to Reylo a lot. Like, you can totally see them hidden those story bits, and like, the coding of Kylo Ren with the cape, with the dark colors, with the aggressive attitude that has towards everyone except Rey, and Rey just being this kind of virginal woman, with this girl who has never experienced the outside world until she meets this monster, this beast, and how he literally awakens something in her. Like, it is very explicit in The Force Awakens that yes, Rey was already Force sensitive, but she was never able to actually use those abilities until she met Kylo and until they were, interacting with each other with the Force. And that's also a metaphor for the sexual awakening, but in Rey's case, it's the Force awakening in her. So that I think that's very clever. And yeah, so Fer, I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
I don't know if I can add more that you already said, but I just want to say that Evermore fits so well with Raylo.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
The song, yeah.
But why is it Reylo? What are the lyrics, or why?
I don't know, just because it speaks about who who he met her and how who he feels in love with her, and somehow he says, yeah, maybe she can let me, but she is gonna be always with me in my her. I don't know.
I have the
So
lyrics here.
Yeah, me
uh-huh.
too. I just pulled them up. And I do agree with you. Like, when I saw that movie on theaters, I was like, man, this is so Reylo. And I think The Last Jedi hadn't even come out at that point, or maybe it had. I don't remember
No, I
exactly.
hadn't.
Yeah, but I have an explicit memory of me thinking this is so Reylo. Or
Okay.
at least very much Ben Solo.
Yeah,
There are some lyrics here that I think, I don't know if these are the ones you said you're talking about, but this is, now I know she'll never leave me, even as she runs away. She will still torment me, call me, hurt me, move me, come what may. Wasting in my lonely tower, waiting by an open door, I'll fool myself. She'll walk right in and be with me forevermore.
That's
Yeah,
so
okay. You
cute.
can just see
Yeah,
that
like, this is
playing
with the
in
with
the
the
last
proposal
season
scene in
of
The
The
Last
Last
Jedi.
Jedi.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, but like everything, there's also like the second verse goes like, I rage against the trials of love. I curse the fading of the light. Though she's already
Oh,
flown so far beyond my reach, she's never out of sight. Force bond. Um, she will still inspire me, be a part of everything I do. Yeah, so like, of course, this song wasn't written with a force bond in mind, but this is really like what a force bond must feel like between two people that have fallen out of, each other's graces. Ben still really much admires Rey and he wants her by his side, but Rey, at this point after the Last Jedi, she has literally closed the door on their relationship and their bond. But I do think they're still force bonded. Like I do think they still can feel each other's feelings throughout the galaxy. And this song is pretty much fits into that. That no matter if Rey has denied him and she has rejected his proposal and has closed the door on him, he can still pretty much feel her presence everywhere and can't stop thinking about that. And I love that lyric of "I curse the fading of the light." That's just the most Ben Solo thing I've read. And yeah, I do like the movie version with Dan Stevens, but I do think that there's also a version with Josh Groban that's beautiful as well. And yeah, I just want to throw all the awards at that song because it's the one saving grace of that movie.
Because Josh
It
Groban.
Yeah.
it also remind me, sorry, about the, I don't know what phrase is it. I think it is in, I don't remember where it is the first that said the first one is not easily broken because it will left one.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what phrase was that, but it reminds me that you said it's, even though Snow created their bond, it's like now they are connected forever
Yeah.
through
Now
the
that I
force
know
bond.
she'll never leave me, even as she runs away. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
There's a
Yeah, pretty
wood
much.
where the forest one used to be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, that's so tragic. I
I
live
just
for
love
this
it that
day.
we can that we can find Reylo in every version of the Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, because it is heavily, inspired by Beauty and the Beast and these other tropes that have inspired Beauty and the Beast. The tropes that we will talk about when we talk about literary tropes, like the Maiden and the Monster Husband and all these like other older tales that inspired the story of Beauty and the Beast, and they're all connected to Reylo because they all have that one same, ancestor.
yeah, can I just say about I don't think any of you have watched the 2014 version of the Beauty and the Beast.
No, I wanted to ever since I heard the Meta Machine episode, but no, I haven't. I
Yeah,
should have
No,
watched
I
that with
haven't
you.
yet.
I think my favorite part on that version is the Beast, because they have a lot of flashbacks when he was a prince, and I think that is like the darkest I've seen him. Not darkest, but like kind of sexier and this kind of 21st century kind of anti-villain. And I think that I don't know. I wanted to talk about that because I think he embodies the Beast even as a human, and I
Mhm.
think that okay, Kylo Ren is a human beast. We can say.
He
I
is,
don't
Okay.
know. Maybe that's a stretch.
and I love that.
No, he's definitely coded as a beast, like definitely. At least on the outside.
Well,
And as a
Adam
That's
prince.
Driver,
what he wants to pretend he is.
Adam Driver is a beast.
Oh, let's not get into that.
Oh my god, he has the size of one. Okay, stop.
Whoa!
I deeply respect that man.
I love how every episode ends up being Adam Thirst. I don't know. I love it. I'm sorry, Adam. We respect you as an actor and we love your work. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's also a Russian version, I think, a Russian movie of Beauty and the Beast. I don't remember the name, but the Beast is a dragon in that version, and it looks very interesting. But I haven't for the life of me been able to find it online. So I'm really sad about that because I really want to watch it because it looks very cool. But if
But it's just
you,
like. Mhm.
yeah, but if you, I was just gonna say that if you find a copy or a version that you can watch online of that movie, just definitely do because I have heard great things about that movie.
Mhm. But it's just like. It explicitly says it's Beauty and the Beast, but with dragons, or it's just like a new story that's based on Beauty and the Beast.
Well, it doesn't explicitly say so. I think it's just like Beauty and the Beast Dragon Edition, but it's the story of this dragon that captures the maiden, the human maiden, and they end up falling in love. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
and the dragon also like it's not only a dragon. he transforms into human from time to time. I think that the difference is that he's not really cursed. It's just that he goes and comes from being a dragon to a human. And yeah, I think there's something about how when she touches him, he turns into a dragon, and it ends up with a lot of sexual tension because they can't touch each other because he ends up becoming this monster that has no how do you say, reason. So he can be really aggressive towards her in his dragon form. So the fact that they can't touch each other but they want to, and they're falling in love. I think I haven't watched it, but it sounds like heaven to me. In NXT paradise.
Okay, so can we move on to the second monster?
Yeah, let's go on to the second movie, and I will leave this one to Fer because she is a really big fan of this next one. So Fer, you want to introduce it?
Okay, Phantom of the Opera. I haven't seen the movie until this year, and was because of Reylo. So when I see the movie, I found out so many parallels in each scene, and one of that is that Eric, the Phantom, wants to be the Christian teacher, and what we see in the Force Awakens is that Kylo wants to be race teacher. All this time that he said, I can show you the ways of the Force, but he actually say, I could show you the other ways of the Force. So he kind of asking her to be his teacher, and I think that is so cute.
Oh wow.
Other part that I see as a parallel between well, the Reylo, the Phantom of the Opera, Eric Christine. Christine has a gift that makes her special in the movie, and that's like a parallel to Ray because Ray in the first is like a kind of intercede to the audience because she has a gift that is the Force, and she discovers this because of Kylo until they have the intervention scene. So in somehow I think like a Kylo feels mm, like I don't say like a kind of interest in her because of the Force and the first one because they have the first one in that scene.
No, I think you're totally correct, and I think that yeah, you can see that kind of power. I don't know, like it's more traditional with Eric and Christine, I think, but with Ray and Kylo, they kind of subvert that kind of I don't know, like power dynamic, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that Ray has a lot more agency than Christine. But okay,
Mm-hmm.
Christine is not such a damsel in distress as some people may think. But yeah, I think that Ray and Kylo, even more in the Last Jedi, really I don't know, really parallel these two, just because yeah, Ray is also like discovering other things and seeing kind of the good in this quote unquote monster that everybody is afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I totally see what you mean.
Yeah, and as for in the Last Jedi, she says she is afraid of this power, and I feel like it when she discovers she has a Force, and she already know, but the Force Awakens is when she knows Kylo, and she also she recognized this power because she says, well, it's been this power all this time, and now it's awakened, and she feels like a related to Kylo because there's the only person in that moment that knows he has the Force too. So she kind of feels like attracted to him, and I feel like I haven't read the Force Awakens novelization, but I've in that scene in the fight scene between them in the Force Awakens, I kind of feel like she feels attracted to join him, just because he's the only person who maybe can understand her.
Uh-huh. No,
I think
yeah,
she definitely thinks about joining him. I don't know if in The Force Awakens, but definitely in The Last Jedi, there's a
Mm-hmm.
moment. I have to believe that there's a moment inside her mind where she kind of imagines, well, what if I do? What if I do join him? Like, she's not going to do it, and she knows she's not going to do it because it's not the right thing. But it
Mm-hmm.
definitely has crossed her mind what it would be like.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, yeah, and I don't know, like Eric is a one is kind of the only person, let's say, that kind of gets Christine in that way, and also like we were saying, like Ben is the only one that gets Ray in that way. And even though Christine is always praised and loved by others, and oh my God, that she's such a great singer, and she's, I know, like people like the idea of her. Nobody really knows her, and that kind of takes a toll on her. And she actually, it's kind of lonely and wants to, have a real connection, and she finds it in this real kind of beast of a man. And
Mm-hmm.
Ray, I just described Ray.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm feeling her like that's so
Yeah.
Ray. And it makes sense because Ryan Johnson has said on Twitter that she loves Phantom of the Opera. He absolutely adores the musical, and I remember this tweet of him that where he said something like, "If there's a chance to see Phantom of the Opera live, I'm definitely going to see Phantom of the Opera live." Like he goes every time that he can.
Oh,
So I cannot believe that he didn't let some of that influence him. Influence him? No, that's not the right word.
influence him.
Influence. I can't believe that he didn't let some of that influence him on writing The Last Jedi and tackling the Reylo dynamic. And like even subconsciously, I think he definitely wrote in some Phantom of the Opera tropes in them, and I do totally agree with you guys. Like for Christine and the Phantom, it's music, and for Kylo and Rey, it's the Force. This thing that bonds them together, that nobody else truly gets and nobody else truly understands the way that they do, and they understand each other and they care about each other because of that. But in the eyes, for example, of the Resistance, Kylo is a monster, and in the eyes of everyone else, at the opera, the Phantom is a monster, and they are willing to protect Christine and Ray, respectively, from the monster, even though both of them really want to be with the monster. And it's really, really interesting and complex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And yeah.
both of
Yeah,
them
and
are real. Sorry,
no,
because both the Phantom and Kylo Ren are both deeply, deeply flawed uh, people, but that doesn't mean they are essentially that they're all evil and there's that. Like this new person, this woman, is helping them also. It's helping them to realize maybe they can be more, and maybe they don't have to be what the outsiders and the society tells them to be. And these kind of relationships, I think, yeah, for some reason they're been around for so long. And there's a reason Ryan Johnson really likes the themes in Phantom, and there's a reason he wanted to put some of them and make them the core of his movie. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm-
Yeah, definitely. And also, I was gonna say something and I completely forgot.
Fair, you were going to say something, I guess.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I, you mentioned Ray Johnson, and I remember the point of no return scene. It looked exactly like the room red room scene.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like the visuals in some of the scenes in The Last Jedi, like the hands, like coming toward each other, like the man has this gloved hand and they're reaching out to this really feminine and white hand. Like those are like very very obvious parallels. And also the point
Yeah.
of no return scene that's like surrounded by fire or theatrical
Oh.
fire because they're on a stage. And also the fact that Christine, for the longest time during the movie at least, she has her hair kind of tied up, and during the point of no return she has her hair down, the way that Rey in the third act of The Last Jedi, the second and third act of The Last Jedi, she has her hair in another, different from the three buns that she always has. She has her hair, down, and that's also another parallel between them that I really
Oh.
love. And I think my favorite moment in the Phantom, and one that I can really connect to Reylo. And I do think that Fer has mentioned this before, is that lyric when Christine goes, "Creature of darkness, what kind of life, I'm sorry, creature of darkness, what kind of life have you known? I'm here to show you that you are not alone." She says something like that. And
Oh.
like, there it is, you're not alone. Neither are you.
Ah! Oh my god.
And, the parallels cannot be more obvious, and
Yeah.
that's also it definitely comes also from the fact that Phantom of the Opera is also one of those stories like Beauty and the Beast that come from these really ancient tropes and myths from the Dead and the Maiden, and there's this um, common ground that they all have. That's why they hit some of these very similar topics. The monster that wants to be seen as something else, and only this maiden gets to see that. I think Phantom and Beauty and the Beast really are connected like that, and it's really, really interesting. It just adds another level to how possible and canon Reylo may actually be.
Yeah, and it's, I think the most important thing that we most, well, one of the most important things that we most note about these two stories and about Reylo is that the Beast character, like the monster character, yeah, is indeed attracted to the maiden character, but the maiden character has a similar, or if not bigger, like kind of, it's more drawn to the Beast character as well. It's not just like this thing that wants to control this fragile little girl. Is also Christine is also reaching for her sexual awakening in a sense, and
Yeah, it's
no, I
totally
think
a
that
female. Yeah.
that's
Sorry.
why of the reasons that's one of the reasons that a lot of women are really drawn to these stories, and men are like,
Yep.
why do you like it so
Yep.
much? You just like deep in my deep in myself.
I think you just
There's
hit a
something.
bullseye with that. Sorry, I think you just hit a bullseye with that because it's definitely like female coded and female gazing stories, From Beauty and the Beast, like it's a deeply female story, and that's why some men will jump to the opportunity to call Stockholm syndrome Belle,
Mm.
or Beauty, oh no, that's Stockholm syndrome. Like there's no way that a girl like her could fall in love with someone like the Beast, because they are unable to see further into it and realize that they're not in love with them because they're beasts. They're in love with them because there's so much more than that, and people
Mm.
cannot see it. And Belle and Ray and Christine and all these characters have in common that they are deeply compassionate, and that compassion is what attracts them to the beast slash monster slash phantom slash Kylo Ren. Um, and that's what they all have in common. And I think it's a beautiful story because it's, yes, it is female empowering, but it's not like they are diminishing female attributes, like being compassionate, like having feelings, like listening and being sympathetic towards others. Those are very, what society has claimed as female traits.
Mhm.
And I love about the stories that they do not um, demonic. They don't. For the lack of another word, they don't shit on those traits. They're not saying like this is not being a woman. This is like old women, like new women need to be powerful and strong, and they don't need a
And they
man.
are those things
And they are all of those things, but
because of their
they
compassion.
yeah, but they don't. Yeah, exactly. They don't need to sacrifice their more feminine qualities about them. And in the end, it's those female feminine qualities that help them save the day. I don't know if I'm making any sense,
No,
but
no.
I think that's what they all have in common, and why women gravitate toward these stories so much.
I love this kind of topics.
Yeah, I love them. I
Eh,
do, like whenever I talk about this, I'm like, man, the sequel trilogy is really targeting women, and we're living in a women's world, and the men are just allowed to enjoy the sequel trilogy if they want to. But this is a female story.
if they
And this
want
is
to.
this is the
No.
hill I'm gonna die
No, yeah, like all kinds of people can enjoy the sequel trilogy, like the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. But yeah, this is finally like catering to another audience that they did before.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think it makes a lot of sense even from a marketing standpoint because I read some article lately, I don't remember where, but I read that, Lucasfilm knew that they already had the male demographic. Like they were gonna go see Star Wars no matter what because they grew up with them and the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy really catered towards them. So their new goal was to bring the women in. And here comes Adam Driver and here comes Rey as a character being the female lead of the trilogy. And, you get this bomb of, that's why girls like us, women like us, have really found a new love for Star Wars ever since the sequel trilogy came out because it is definitely more geared towards women and our likings and the stories that we want to see. And female fantasies, basically not male fantasies like Luke Skywalker, but female fantasies like Rey and Reylo and all of those good things that we love about the sequel trilogy. And I think it makes a lot of sense in a lot of levels. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really happy that Star Wars and the sequel trilogy exists.
Yeah, can I just say like to close on the
Yeah.
Phantom of the Opera that I think the visual that I don't know that embodies more Phantom and of the Opera is in The Force Awakens with the Bridal Curry because he's literally a creature in a mask and is carrying these women in light colors and I've seen that kind of portrayal and painting of the Phantom and Christine in a lot of parts, and I just thought, okay, this is a direct throwback to Phantom.
Yeah, and the Phantom is a direct throwback to Dead and the Maiden, which
Yeah.
again is this old ancient trope. And yeah, it's all connected, folks. It's all connected.
It rhymes.
It
Okay, it
rhymes.
doesn't
Cinematic
make it.
poetry. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all we can say about Phantom of the Opera. Also, just another note. I swear to God, Meta Machina does not pay me for this, but they did an amazing Phantom of the Opera episode, and I loved every single bit of it. It's hilarious. It's so fun, and you should go check it out because they are brilliant, and they talk about Phantom of the Opera for like 2 hours. So like, what else do you need? Okay. So we can move on to the next topic, and I think this Andy will take this one.
Mhm. Yeah, the next topic is it's a short one because we're just going to talk about a trope that is the villainous crush trope. This started as a TV trope, but you can trace it to literature and film and all kinds of things like anime and manga and in animation and all that kind of stuff. So it's just self-explanatory. The villainous crush trope is sorry. When the villain of the story or the bad guy of the story has takes a liking to the heroine of the story, and this can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, can be something in between, and do not need to remain the same way throughout the whole story. It can change and it can evolve to something else. And some of the kind of more mainstream examples for this is Catwoman and Batman, Catwoman being the villain. A, the Gaston from Beauty and the Beast taking a liking to Belle, that is definitely just a villain, uh, like a straight up villain. Same way it is with Frollo to Esmeralda, which has a lot of sexual and creepy things that
Yep.
maybe kind of uncomfortable to talk about. Um, but yeah, this doesn't mean it has to be just a totally evil bad guy and a totally sweet, innocent, good quote unquote good girl on the story. And the another example is Ripner to Lisa in Red Eye, and I like it that some of the examples that I can think about are Megamind in with Roxanne in the movie Megamind.
Yep.
And this is just this is just like a kind of trope that has been evolving throughout the times. And I don't know, it's like I said before, maybe the villain is a straight villain, and maybe he is becoming an anti-hero, and this trope normally evolves to the enemies to lovers trope, or even the love redeems trope, which we all kind of like. Also,
Yeah.
another example of this in animation is Lotor from to Allura in Voltron Legendary Defender. I'm
Don't
just
talk
going
to
to
me
say
about
that.
Voltron. Please
No,
don't
I
talk to me
won't.
about Voltron. No, I can't.
I won't. Don't worry. And yeah. Do
Yeah,
you
also,
want to
can I
add
just throw?
some other examples?
I don't know if examples because I do think that the some of the examples that I can come up with will also fall into the next topic that we have, which is enemies to lovers.
Okay.
So I don't know if I can add any more of that, but I do really love the trope, and I find it extremely fascinating because it can take so many forms. Like you said, the villainous crush trope can end badly and can be a very bad thing. It could be, the villain just wanting to possess the hero in a very bad way, in a very creepy way, in a non-healthy way. But I do think that at its best, the villainous crush trope ends up being a very hopeful trope because it takes a character that has, of course, some issues. It has a lot of trouble in their past, and of course, they have done bad things, but they end up finding this really humane thing inside of them that finds a liking and can't help but being attracted to this beacon of light, which is the hero or the heroine in the good side. And I do think that that gives the villain so much depth and so much complexity. And it can be very interesting to see that develop if it develops well, because as you said, it can lead to an enemies to lovers trope, or it can be a way for the anti-hero or the villain with a crush to redeem themselves. And of course, tying it back to Reylo, this is what we want to see. Like, we want to see the villain's crush trope, but at its best, not at its worst, which is, I think, what some people tend to see Reylo as, like the villain's crush, but the bad side. And of course, that's not the Reylo that we ship, and that's not the Reylo that we claim. The Reylo that we claim is the villain's crush trope at its best, which ends up with hope, with love, with redemption. And I think that's the path that we all want for Ben and for Ray, of course, because they are both like so similar, because they're both lonely and they're both very powerful and they don't have anyone else that really gets them in their life, and they have been really pushed around by the world, but they can find this like common ground, and they have this really humane thing that binds them together. And in the end, I really like the story of a villain or a bad guy, an anti-hero who can find their way back home. And that's just all I want for Ben Solo in episode 9. I don't know. Fair, you have anything to add? Any examples that you can come up with?
Um, I just love. I don't have any example at this moment, but I can say that I love the dynamic between Ray and Kyla because they didn't decide to be enemies. This just happened because the circumstances. Because Ray was deep with the resistance, just was because of pain, and she has to go in this adventure with him, but she didn't decide to go. Like you can say, she wants to be in Jakku,
Yeah.
so she didn't decide to be his enemy, but just happened, and it's something that I found is like interesting is that when they are obligated to meet each other to know each other because of the first one, they really like each other, and they have more things in common that they know. So if maybe if they really know in another circumstances, maybe the story will be totally different. And it's something that I think sometimes, and yeah, it's kind of tragic too.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that is such
definitely.
a great point. I know it makes you think about maybe if circumstances were different, maybe they could have had a different story, and maybe they will still like each other and they will still fall in love with each other.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I
I
think.
like it. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I just thought that I like that this is kind of the first step to the enemies to lovers and the love redeems trope. but I also like that this is the first step to blurring. Sometimes is blurring the lines between bad guy and good guy, and between evil and good. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, because like it really is a way to show that, there is dark in everything that has light, and there's light in everything that has darkness. There's that it's a yin and yang. You can have complete light and you can have complete dark. There's always some bit of the other inside.
And that's Star
And
Wars. Star Wars is
yeah,
balance.
yeah, exactly. And another thing that I was going to say, that I really do agree with Fer, and I really think she brought up a really good point, that, neither Ray or Kylo, or Ben are really tied to the ideology of their sides. I think Ray is just really with the resistance because it's the first group of people that have given her a home and have given her the acceptance that she really craves. But she's not really the resistance because she believes in the cause. The way that Finn has learned to make the cause his own in the course of the Last Jedi. I don't think Rey has done that yet. I think she's not really full part of the resistance because she doesn't share the common goals that they have. If if Poe and Rey end up, having some interactions in 9, I think it's gonna be a good sense of conflict between them, because Rey is not committed to the cause. She's committed to bringing peace to the galaxy. That's of course something that she wants, but she's there for so much more than that. She's there to find herself. And on the other side, I don't think Kylo is really tied to the ideology of the First Order. Again, it's the only place that has given him some sort of home, even if in his case it's not really a home because it's a really toxic environment. But it's the closest thing that he has ever felt to having a home, because he had Snoke who looked after him in a very horrendous way. But
Yeah.
you gotta do what you have to do with what you have. And yeah, he's not really tied to the First Order. And I think it's really interesting because now he's the supreme leader, but he's not really, he's not Hux. Hux is really committed to the cause, and that's why he probably will stay to cope with 9. So like, it's really interesting because, as Farah was saying, maybe in another life, like, they didn't have to be enemies. They're not enemies because they don't share ideologies. They're just enemies because they found themselves on opposite sides of a war. But that doesn't mean that they themselves personally have some kind of ideology difference.
Mm.
At its
Yeah,
core, it's not it.
and also, and I remember the Ryan Johnson is also in the script that now there are complicated enemies because there is what more can be complicated in a relationship between enemies that the feelings they have for each other. So I just think about that they have now something that is very hard to explain now because we don't know, but we already know that it's they love each other, but that's the reason because it make a complicated relationship because now they say well we say now I with the resistance and you are the supreme leader. We know we have this kind of connection, and that's why we are complicated.
So Jason Fry, the author of the Last Jedi novelization, has tweeted about this a couple times. But the fact of the matter is that we really cannot understand what the relationship between Rey and Ben is like, because they have seen each other's thoughts and they have gone through each other's souls. Basically, they don't have any secrets, with each other. They can't, because they can literally see what the other sees, and they can see their past, they can see their future. And that's something that we will never have. We cannot, for even if for with your spouse, your best friend, your mom, your dad, you cannot have that, because you will never truly get into their mind, and you will never really understand them on that level that Ray and Ben have. So he says something about how the closest thing that we have to that kind of relationship is a romantic relationship, but it's even more than that, and it's something that we cannot put in a box and we can't really define, because we will never have that. So he really made a good point. Like, he was like, he really didn't say that he was a Reylo or that he approved of Reylo or
But he said
anything.
he was a Reylo.
But what
Yeah.
didn't he? but that's what he said, that he really cannot think of something that can be closer to their relationship than a romantic relationship. Like it's a totally valid read. And yeah, that's it. I really like that he kind of said that Reylo is canon, but not really. Like don't at me. Really, literally don't at me.
That, oh my god, he literally said don't at me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can move on to the free for all.
Yeah, free for all. Woo. Yeah, this is a really fun one. Like the next one is, of course, the beloved enemies to lovers. And first of all, I just want to mention that Shai from Mera Machina made a great poll competition about favorite tropes, and she had different stages. She first like had two options, and then the winner of that went against another one,
Brackets.
that kind of thing. Yeah, brackets. And at the end, it was enemies to lovers the winner of overall, because it's a delicious trope. I don't know how else to put it, but it's so juicy. There's so much to tackle from this. So I don't know if any of you want to say something about it, or do I?
uh, I'm happy with just starting with this.
Okay. So you do, or do I?
You the first, like the first.
Who took first? So enemies to lovers is just as straightforward as the name says. It's a couple of enemies who find themselves on different sides, of either a war, a conflict, or something of that kind, that end up developing a relationship, that it transforms from this really, how do you say? Well, yeah, it transforms from being enemies, from being conflicted with each other, to starting to understand each other, to kind of starting developing feelings about each other, and in the end falling in love.
Falling in love.
That's the stages of enemies to lovers. And boy, oh boy, I have shipped enemies to lovers ships even before I knew what a ship was or what enemies to lovers was. I think the first one that I ever shipped was Kobo and Kiara from The Lion King 2.
I think we all did.
I mean, every girl that watched that movie shipped Kobo and Kiara, so like we all kind of have an enemies to lovers fangirl inside of us. Um, and yeah, but just like Kobo and Kiara, there are so many examples out there. And why do you think it's such a, a popular trope? Like, why is it that people gravitate towards it? It really won on a landslide in Shai's, poll. So, like, why is it?
Well, I think it's just because it's one of those tales that are all as old as time, and I think one of the things that make me like this trope a lot is just because it's not so easy to find in real life, because when you are kind of an enemy, you have kind of an enemy, you normally don't resolve that, and I think that is what drives me to it, because of the forgiveness and even having like different ideologies or being in different sides. You you can go you end up on the most like passionate and most deep of all feelings, and to the complete opposite that when you were from the start, and that is so rare to find. And yeah, because for me it's kind of a deeply fictional kind of narrative and a dream or desire or something. And I think it's because it's been with us for a long time. I mean, since Romeo and Juliet and before that.
Yeah, exactly. I think the quintessential enemies to lovers would be Romeo and Juliet.
Hmm.
And Romeo and Juliet kind of really parallel Ray and Kylo, not completely, but at least
Uh-huh.
on the fact that we were talking about earlier, about how they're really not enemies because they don't agree ideologically. They're just enemies because, in the case of Romeo and Juliet, they were born into the conflict. They didn't
Yeah,
create it, and it was not something that they agreed on.
and it's
And
not fair also.
yeah, also it's really, really not fair. Like the point of Romeo and Juliet it is how the conflict between families really ended up on the tragedy of their children dying, and when they could have just solved the conflict with these children, falling in love and just call it a day and being like, okay, conflict's over, we're going home. And so I do agree with you that the reason that so many of us find this trope so interesting is that really we cannot put this into a real life world experience because it is very difficult. And there are real life villains and real life enemies that you cannot develop that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
But that's the point of fantasy, and that's the point of fiction, that you can take these stories and really write and create a sort of a series of situations that lead into the falling in love that feels real, that feels that it makes sense, and that in the end it's just a way to show the themes of forgiveness and love and hope. And of course it's really hard to find that in real life, so I do think it's not fair to kind of wanting to put ships like Reylo and Sutara in a real life world experience, because it's not fair, because real life is not fiction, and fiction is meant to be just a way for us to find some cathartic experiences. And that's what fiction is. And yeah.
No, but for me that's inspiring because, like we said, it's so difficult to find it in real life. But I don't know, like the morals behind, I don't know, forgiving your enemy and coming to terms and find a common ground and find balance are just. I think that is what we need right now, and that is what we need as a society and as humanity and all that stuff. And this is a trope that, I don't know, that gets it all. I just love it so much.
Yeah, what do you think, Fer?
Yeah, I really think about what Gina said, that how I love this trope. I think it's one of the most interesting trope of all of them, because it has all these feelings, and also you have the sexual tension. And I
Yeah.
swear, in every show you have of enemies to lovers, there's always sexual tension, because you have all
Yep.
these feelings, passion, hate, and like you like it, but you hate them, and it's so much, and you feel the sexual tension between. I think, I don't know, it's for my age, or I don't know, but I kind of like that trope in this moment.
No,
And
yeah,
I think
same.
it's one of the most interesting in all the tropes, because yeah, I kind of find boring like the friends to lovers, or
Yeah, same.
lovers. Those I don't know. I just think very interesting. And yeah, I think that's what I need us is to like forgive our enemy and love him, not just in a romantic form, in all the ways. Is to learn to forgive our enemy, because I just read in a that I remember in a film Rose Smith, that but the phrase that Rose says when she kisses Finn is I forgot how you call it,
Uh-huh.
is that's how we're gonna say no hide what we
Yeah, not
That's
hate.
that's how we're gonna win. Not fighting what we hate, saving what we love.
yeah, exactly. That's made me think about that meta, that what actually is gonna you're gonna with the war is not with hate, it's with love, because you're gonna forget your enemy and finally like find a balance in all these kind of ideologies that they have, the first order and the resistance. And I think it's interesting that we actually can bring that to the real world in our society.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I.
definitely. I think it's one of the best quotes from the Star Wars saga. Like completely. I just quote that every single day in my head. Like, not fight what you hate, say what you love. And I think it's a beautiful quote. And I do agree with you about the sexual tension thing. Like, it's one of the most interesting parts of the trope. Like, not, I don't know. It's really interesting, the ideology and the transformative love kind of thing, but also the sexual tension is just really really interesting, and it's really nice and fun to see play out on screen.
Mhm.
Um, I think Andy was gonna say something and I interrupted.
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, I'm going to follow what you're saying, and then I'm going to get back to my point. I think we like conflict, and we like conflict in our ships, and we like difficulties and obstacles. So
Yeah,
when the good parts arrive, they're so much sweeter. And and yeah, like you never see me gushing as I do for a couple that spend like half of their interactions bantering and kind of hating each other, finally kiss. uh you that is just like the the top of the mountain for me. I just love it so much. You will never see me screaming and crying as much for a couple that just from the moment they met they just liked each other, because of the
yeah,
conflict. And I think we have that in common. And to follow what we were saying about that quote, yeah, I actually that is my favorite Star Wars quote of all time. I try to live by it since I heard for the first time 1 year ago. And because I just find it so powerful that love is so much stronger than hate, because the passion and the strength that love gives you and the drive that it brings you is just so much powerful that the greatest of hate can ever give you. And that
yeah,
is another theme of Star Wars that I think the that it will get so, I don't know how to phrase it, like it will be so obvious and it will be so engraved in our minds that that is a theme if Rey and Ben do end up together. And that's why I like this pairing, because it's just it makes sense for Star Wars.
yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
What you were saying about how we enjoy conflict, but yeah, definitely, like without conflict, there's no story. That's screenwriting 101 right there. Like you need to have a conflict to have story, and that's just the basics of storytelling. And when you find that on a couple, like it's a micro universe, and to find a couple that will play on screen this kind of game, of trying to find a common ground,
Mhm.
and that being the conflict of the relationship. I think it's just fascinating, and no matter how many times I see it on screen, I will never get tired of it. And I do have, in the last year, I have developed kind of an aversion towards friends to lovers, because I just don't enjoy that trope anymore. I just rewatched the Kim Possible movies recently,
Mhm.
and as a kid, I kind of just glanced over it. But when I saw Ron and Kim getting together, like I just didn't feel it. I wasn't happy about it. I was just like, I guess. And I don't know, because Friends to Lovers just seems too easy. It seems like, really, like
Yeah.
if something were
Whenever
to happen, why didn't it happen before? And
Exactly. But I remember that when I was a kid, okay, maybe before Cole and Kiara were at the same time, I really like Jimmy Neutron and Cindy just because
oh,
they had like a
Yeah.
bad relationship at the beginning and they just like became friends and then they loved each other and all that stuff. I don't know. I love this trope since I was a kid.
Yeah.
You can blame Disney and Nickelodeon for that.
yeah, I think there's also like a difference between, enemies to lovers and like friends who banter who then become
Oh
lovers.
yeah.
Because some people tend to, get those confused. Because, for example, I've seen some people online calling Ron and Hermione enemies to lovers because they didn't get along in the beginning. But I'm like, no, those are friends to lovers. They just bantered a lot, but it's not like they were enemies. It's not like they were conflicted. It's not, something like that. Is
Like don't bring me banter, bring me hate.
Yeah, yeah, it's like complete, like deep rooted hate, or like something like really bigger than either of them. Like with Rey and Kylo, like it's not that they really hate each other to the core, but they have this bigger thing going on
I
that
don't think they
that
hate them.
does.
No, I don't think
No, no,
either.
no, definitely. I don't think they ever hated each other. Like maybe Ray at some point, but that was before she really got to know him. So she didn't really hate him. She hated Kylo Ren. So yeah.
She hates
So
Kylo Ren. She doesn't hate Ben.
She wants to
yeah,
hate him, but she can't.
yeah.
That is another thing about Beauty and the Beast and Dead and the Maiden and all that stuff.
Yeah. So what I was going to say, like, I wanted to get to the point, Ron and Hermione are not enemies to lovers just because they banter, who really would be enemies to lovers? Draco and Hermione.
Oh,
And hear me out. Draco and Hermione were just, if they were canon, it would have been the most powerful thing, and it would have fit completely with the core and the theme of Harry Potter, because Draco grew up in a family, in a really kind of an abusive, not really abusive, but toxic family, because his father was a
no,
debt
it was
lender.
abusive, I guess. I think.
I mean, not really. Yes, in some level from Lucius' side, but I think Narcissa really loved him, and she really cared about him. So he kind of had both of those. But his household was really toxic. His family was really toxic because they were, of course, loyal to Lord Voldemort, and Lucius, of course, just wanted. He would have done anything to be on Voldemort's good side, and they raised Draco with that mentality, and Draco
Mm-hmm.
didn't deserve that. I think Draco really throughout the series really showed that he was more human than what his parents wanted him to be, and I just really get really frustrated with Harry Potter right now, because to think of what a beautiful arc for Draco it would have been if at the end of Deathly Hallows Part 2 in the movies, he would have said no when Voldemort offered, the hug to him. He could have just stood up and be like,
Please say
no,
no.
like this is wrong, and I'm standing here with my school and my classmates and my professors. If he would have had that, turn of heart, I would have really loved it. I think the redemption arc for Draco Malfoy was set up, but it was never completed, and it's really frustrating. And to top it all off, if he would have ended up with Hermione, whom he called her mudblood at the very beginning of the series, and that's like a slur. That's something that it's so bad for him to have done that, and he really should have learned from that, which I don't think he ever did.
And he never
And
apologized.
so he never apologized, and it just would have been so powerful to see that dynamic play off, like for him to kind of understand that he was more than what the Malfoy family was, and to find that through Hermione, who is just the embodiment of everything that his family hates. And it just would have been so powerful, and I'm really mad that J.K. Rowling never had the balls to do that. And I started shipping Hermione also, when I read the books, not because of the movies. Like, I totally get if you just see the movies and you like Drake and Hermione, that doesn't make any sense. But truly, believe me, if you read the books, I think there are some details there that really kind of point you towards being like, well, what would have happened if Draco had found, this common ground with Hermione, and if she would have helped him get out of that abusive and toxic environment. And I think that's what needs to happen with Ben and Ray. So, like, I'm forever gonna be bitter that Hermione was never canon. Also Sutara, which was right there, and I
I was
don't know
about to
why
say
it didn't
that. You know
happen.
what other pairing was so obvious, but they didn't take it because they were cowards.
Lotter and Allura.
No, I was going to talk about Sutara, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah. Oh
that
yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, Lotter and Allura are also kind of like Sutara, but badly written. So,
Yeah.
um, but that's the thing that I don't like about Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think it's the most perfect TV show that you can find.
Except
But
that.
the fact that they went with a boring friends to lovers
And the hero
instead
gets
of
the girl
the,
because she's a
yeah,
prize.
yeah, I don't like the implications of ending up with Katara, because first of all, throughout the series it was always like repeated once and again and again and again that Katara was a mother figure
And
to
he's
the group.
instead.
She was a mother figure to her brother and Aang and Toph, and from the very interaction with Zuko, you knew that that they were more on the same level than Aang and Katara ever were. I don't know if that makes any sense, but at the end, to have her end up with Aang, it was just the most boring, predictable thing they could have done. It wasn't really set up that well, because if you wanted to have that relationship, pay off, you need to have more interactions, romantic interactions between them, and just having them kiss is not really a romantic interaction if
Yeah.
all they do is kiss, if there's no build up to that. And instead, Zuko and Katara have a lot of will build up to that moment that never came. From the moment, I think it's in book 3. I don't remember the name of the character, but this one, I think she was a bounty hunter or something. She was like, she called Katara Zuko's girlfriend, and they both blush, and they're like, no, like, no, they're not my boyfriend. She's not my boyfriend. She's just not my girlfriend. And they were so flustered, and it was like so cute. And the very end of the series is Zuko taking a liking for Katara. So please,
Oh my God,
can
will that be a
you spare
parallel
some
in nine?
Katara, please?
You
No.
just said something that's going to happen in nine.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Wow, I would love that.
Okay,
Um,
I think we can talk about another kind of this pairings that actually worked out.
okay.
Well, this movie is kind of flawed, but it's really important for Star Wars because this movie is also made by George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, and the themes and the morals he puts it in all of his movies. And I'm talking about Strange Magic. Strange Magic is an animated movie that I don't know which year did it come out?
I think it was 2014 or 15. I'm not really sure. Let me look it up and I'll go back to you, but you go on.
Yeah, and the thing about this is that it's kind of like a similar setup to Star Wars because it's just like the good side and the bad side. You have I don't remember the names exactly, but it's a forest, it's a fantasy, and you have the good fairies there are on the light side, and you have these creatures that are kind of insects and they live on the dark side of the forest. And you have the Buck King, who is the bad guy, the big villain, and you have Marianne, who is a princess, a fairy princess that she used to be really like I don't know, she used to be really naive, but then she got cheated on and she just hates romance and all the stuff. But it is important to talk about this one because even though the story it's not the greatest, it does end up with an enemies to lovers, and in that it ends up happily, and it's Marianne and the Buck King. They end up together. Like the big bad guy that he isn't even like attractive or anything. He's just a regular traditional fairy tale bad
He's
guy.
a straight up monster. He's a straight
Yeah,
up
he's a
like
monster. He's
insect.
ugly. Yeah, and they end up together because the power of love and all that stuff. And yeah, it is important because it is George Lucas, and even though George Lucas didn't doesn't control the sequel trilogy at all, um, like yeah, it shows that these are some of the topics that he is interested about, and he put some of those in. He put some of those on Star Wars and all the other Star Wars properties that he had worked on, such as Clone Wars and stuff. So yeah, I think it's kind of a good foreshadowing, and I don't know. It's like I'm hopeful for
Yeah.
Reylo when I think about this movie.
Yeah, me too. It came out in 2015, by the way. I just looked it up.
Okay.
And apparently it's just the Land of the Fairies and the Dark Forest. That's just what
Okay.
it's called.
Okay.
um, so yeah, I totally agree with you, and I'm really glad that you brought up Strange Magic. I know you really, really didn't enjoy the movie, and
I
it's
don't
a
really,
bad
really didn't
movie.
enjoy. I just didn't like.
Yeah, that. Like
Stop
I enjoyed it. I
like
know.
that.
I know. Listen, 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 listen. I know it's bad. If you see it, you're gonna be like, "What the fuck is this crap?" Because it's a musical, but it's a jukebox musical, which means that it takes already famous songs, pop songs, and they kind of shoehorn in them into the story and they make like really bad covers. So that's why it really doesn't feel like really you can't really connect with the story because every 5 seconds you're reminded, oh yeah, this is a movie because you're listening to Kelly Clarkson song or something like that. But behind after all that, if you look more into it, I do think I agree with Andy that because George Lucas is the mind behind this movie, you can really see the themes that have carried on into all of his projects, and the fact that this movie that is a movie that he really wanted to make for his dollars, um,
Mm.
it really revolves around this female character falling in love with someone who is a monster in the eyes of everyone, and the monster who falls in love even after he was hurt himself as well. And I think it's a beautiful story. I think it's a really cool way to do it with fairies and like a very fantastical setting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I do, it really does give me hope also because to think that this comes from the same mind that came up with Star Wars, and to know that Lucasfilms is always gonna try to live up to what George Lucas intended when he first wrote A New Hope. I think it really does say a lot that an enemies to lovers, sorry, it does say a lot that an enemies to lovers couple can be happy and can end up together, without it being problematic or whatever, like, oh, he kidnapped his sister, whatever. Yeah, but he ended up, redeeming himself. It's not like she fell in love with him because he kidnapped his sister, She fell in love with him because she saw
Goals.
something in him. Yeah, goals. She saw something in him, something else that not even him saw in himself. And it's just a really nice story, and I think it's really a good setup for Reylo. So if you ship Reylo and you haven't seen Strange Magic, I strongly recommend it. Get ready to cringe a lot, but it's a nice story. It plays out
We are
really
for
nice.
Reylo.
Yeah.
Um,
Had you watched that for?
Yeah, Spring
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an experience.
it truly was.
Yeah, it
But yeah,
definitely.
I do it for Reylo, so it's okay. But yeah, if I like that, and in the end, kind of the unites or their love unites the two forests, the bad forest
Yeah.
and the good forest. And I feel like a kind of the episode 9 will do the same because I just think on the troopers who I think they are good, but they are
Yeah.
like racing like to be bad. And like Finn is gonna be part of that story with the stormtroopers. And I really like on the end when they found the balance, kind of these two sides, the first order and the resistance gonna unite. So I like to think it's gonna happen in episode 9.
Yeah,
It's a
me
good
too.
ending.
Yeah, definitely. It would really close the saga in a really nice, really neat bow because it would really bring the whole thing together,
Yeah.
finding balance and finally, tearing down this idea that the light needs to overpower the dark when in reality they need to coexist with each other.
Yeah,
Do,
absolutely.
do you know why else would it be a nice ending and it will wrap everything up?
What?
Because of the person who started it all, and well, the two people who started it all, Padme and Anakin.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we,
So
we
what do you
can move
want?
on to
We
that.
can move on to the next section.
Yeah,
Uh,
what-
just just to wrap the episode, of course, the last thing that we want to bring up, of course, is Anidala, and this is a theory that has been running around in Reylo circles ever since the Force Awakens came out. Some people think that Rey and Kylo are actually, Padme and Anakin reincarnated, and I don't fully support that. But there are some of us, that think that it's not that they're reincarnations of Padme and Anakin, but they are kind of they're following, this for a lack of a better term, this circle of life, of making the same mistakes and then but learning from the past and they are basically going through the Amidala story but in reverse. And I just find that so fascinating. So any of you guys want to start on that one, your thoughts and why people think that Rey and Kylo are Padme and Anakin in reverse?
Fair?
I just think what you're saying that the storytelling is like it's so obvious when with Raylo, like how it's gonna end. But I just think how tragic is the story of Raylo, how tragic it starts, and you like it's so sad. It ends with a tragic ending. And how innocent and how innocent and romantic it starts Anidala and how tragic it become. It just made me think about that, how tragic it starts Raylo, and like it's obvious it's gonna be a happy ending because it's like as you say, the first circle and not making the same mistakes that did uh, Padme and well Anakin more than Padme. Oh
Uh-huh.
yeah,
No, I actually, some weeks ago, I just saw an image that it followed Anakin's journey, and it literally is Ben's journey about on Rivers.
yeah,
Yeah, I saw that
If
picture
you
too.
count the death of Leia, it will go onto that. But if it doesn't, it's still just a really really like just in your face parallel.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like what first is that Anidala starts off being really cutesy and naive and innocent, and then it develops into this really really dark place where they're on opposite sides, and Anakin literally goes like, "You and I can rule the galaxy together and bring new order to my new empire," and things like that. And the way that it ends is just so tragic. And when you look at Rey and Kylo, they start at that point. It's Kylo's already on the dark side, something that it took Anakin like 3 movies to get to.
Uh-huh.
Kylo's already there. So his story kind of starts in the middle of Anakin's, and it's just a completely reverse. It's actually kind of funny to look at it because it's like this poor boy. In the First Awakens, he's like, help me, grandfather, and I will finish what you started. And of course, in the context that we had in 2015, maybe that for us meant, oh, his plan is to take over the galaxy, and maybe that's what he intended in that moment. But the way that it's gonna play out, and this is me being prophetic about it, but the way it's gonna play out is that he will finish what his grandfather started, which will be him developing this relationship with Rey and finding a way to be with her. And the thing with Anakin is that he fell to the dark side because he couldn't save Padme. The fact of the matter that he wanted to have Padme by his side so much that he ended up causing the very thing that brought him to the dark side. And if we are going with the idea that Kylo is reverse Anakin, then the reverse of that is that his feelings for her, for Ray, is what it's eventually gonna bring him back to a more light side. Not complete. I don't think
Yeah.
he's gonna go complete light side, but he will be back to being Ben Solo, to let go of the dark side, to let go of the past, and he will embrace the light because of Ray. And in some speculation that we even have done in the podcast, that he will find a way, or maybe Ray will be the one to find a way to save people from dying, which is what Anakin wanted all along.
Oh wow.
He was traumatized because he couldn't save his mother, and then he lost it completely when he couldn't save Padme. But the fact that maybe at one point Rey will be the one to find that way to save another person's life, in this case Ben's, and that will be the factor, the moment that will bring him back to the light, and then it will be a complete circle with Anakin's story and Ben's. and it will really pay off if you watch the movies chronologically.
Oh yeah.
Because you will
Like
start you will
it
start with this really hopeful story with Anakin that goes bad, and then you're gonna find a middle ground with the original trilogy, and in the end you're gonna find a complete happy ending, a complete circle with the sequel trilogy, and it's gonna be like so beautiful to watch back to back if that's what ends up happening.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
actually no, actually when we were watching the movies, it did feel, well, all the movies are fantastic, but it did feel incomplete. Like it felt like a whole that just was missing its final part, and I love that because it's just one story. I love it, and
Yeah.
I really believe it's going to pay off. And actually, uh, I believe it's more obvious that that is where it's going to happen when you think about what if it doesn't, because or how tragic it will be that Anakin and Padme's grandson and Leia's son is going to stay in darkness like how he began in the trilogy. That doesn't that isn't good storytelling. I'm
That's
sorry.
not good storytelling, sis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone
Hmm.
who tells you otherwise is like, uh, I don't know, they're blind.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I do think that if you look at it from a storytelling perspective, it's just the most obvious thing they can do. Like bringing balance to the Force through Anakin Skywalker's grandson is just, it just makes sense,
Yeah.
because he ended up not bringing balance, but bringing darkness to the Force. And his son Luke ended up bringing light to the Force, but he didn't bring balance. He just tipped the scale over to the light side,
Hmm.
and that's not balanced either. The Force is still not balanced by the end of the original trilogy, and that's why it kind of feels like something is missing, and that's what the sequel trilogy. I think I want to believe will end up doing. They will basically leave the scales balanced completely, and it's not gonna be like the Resistance is gonna win the war against the First Order, and Kylo Ren's gonna die, and Rey's gonna celebrate with Luke's Force Ghost, and everyone will be happy. Like that's not what's gonna happen. They will find a more mature ending, a more balanced ending, something that will compromise both sides, and but it will really feel more like a happy ending because if Anakin ended his story in a bad note, then why would Ben Solo end up in a bad note as well? That's not what Star Wars is, and you have to remember that Star Wars is meant to be a children's movie. It's not meant to be nihilistic. It's not meant to be depressive. It's not meant to be realistic. And the fact of the matter is that if it will end up in a happy ending, and for some people they think that Kylo Ren dying by the hands of Rey will be a happy ending when it will definitely not be. Because, as you said, he is the grandson of Anakin Skywalker. He is the grandson of Padmé and Amidala. He is the son of Han and Leia, the heroes of the original trilogy, and he's the nephew of Luke Skywalker, who's like the most legendary character ever. So there's no way like this boy will not end up in darkness. I don't believe it for a second because they know Lucasfilms knows better than that, and
Hmm.
I'm so excited to see him, giving this, I don't know, fulfilling his arc.
Yeah,
That's all I wanted to say.
and fulfilling the whole saga's arc, let's
Yeah,
say.
the whole saga arc, there's no one who, the chosen one never really came to be because no one ever really brought balance to the Force. Like, not Luke Skywalker did not do that. He did a lot of things, and he was really good at a lot of things, but he was not the chosen one because he did not bring balance to the Force. But he did push Ben Solo's story forward
Hmm.
in that moment. Even as tragic as it was when he decided to ignite his saber, even for a second, that's what pushed Ben Solo over to the dark side. But that's what it was needed because once he rose to the
Mm-hmm.
dark side, it allowed for Rey to come to the light, and
Mm-hmm.
to rise as his counterpart. And I think that's what the Force needs. I don't think you can find balance in just one person. I think you need two. And you just will make a lot of sense to have someone that's more prone to light than dark, and someone who is more prone to dark than
Hmm.
light, coming together and, working together towards bringing balance to the Force, and that's the yin and yang, and that's just what Star Wars has been since the beginning.
I think
Yeah.
that is a really, really great note to end the episode.
Yeah, I love it. So, and yeah, I love Anidala and I love Anidala in reverse. And so, yeah.
Crazy reverse Anidala.
Christ in reverse Anidala, I have that as my Tumblr header for like all the year.
Um,
Do you have anything else that you want to add, guys?
No,
Fair? No?
no, I don't
I
think so.
think we said everything we needed to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, the whole point of doing this is just to kind of, I don't know, to bring light to the fact that Reylo is not new. Like the fact that we ship Reylo is something that it makes sense because of these things that have come before it. Like these couples, these stories have paved the way for Reylo to be a thing. And it shouldn't really come to a surprise to anyone if when Reylo ends up being happening and being canon, because we have all this behind it, and we haven't even talked about the literary tropes that come before it that also paved the way for Reylo, and we will be talking about those in the future.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, and this you can look at these movies and these TV shows and these stories and definitely see what once Reylo is canon, if once Reylo is canon, is gonna be the basis for that. To end up the episode, I just want to give some quick recommendations. We always do fanfic and songs, so I have a song that I think you guys are going to love because it was explicitly based on Reylo, and it's called Starcrust, and it's by Miss This. You can find that on Spotify. It's spelled Starcrust all together, and Miss This is Misshis all together as well. And you can listen to it, and you can really tell that the song is heavily, heavily Reylo, and even the band. I don't know if it's just a singer. I don't know. I haven't looked them up, but on their Twitter page, they released the song with the hashtag Reylo because they were like, we were inspired by what we saw in The Last Jedi. So this is a song that every Reylo needs to listen to because it is written for Reylo. I mean, by
Okay, I
Reylos
just
as
saved
well.
it.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And for the fanfic, I don't have one fanfic in particular to recommend, but there is this recollection in AO3 um, that you can find that has a lot of holiday, Christmassy, tropey fanfics that are so funny and they're cute, and you will find one to your liking. There are so many, and they're so very well written, and I just think it's the perfect time of the year to read those. Like my favorite trope is the fake dating. Like, oh, Ben Solo needs to bring someone home for the holidays, so he's gonna pay this girl some money because she's poor and she doesn't eat anything to be his date. And oh my God, they end up falling in love for real.
I'm
Who would
still
have guessed?
I'm still waiting for my Christmas Prince AU though. If you can
Oh, that would
find
be so
something,
good.
please send it to
And
me.
maybe I think maybe someone has already written that. I don't know. I will have to look for it. But in the meantime, you can find that collection on AO3. I will try to link you guys to that. And in the meantime, I think that's all from us.
Mhm.
Anything else that you guys want to add before we
I'm just
go?
going to say that happy holidays.
Oh
Had
yeah,
we didn't say that before,
yeah, we
but
didn't say
this
that.
episode will be coming out through the holidays
Yeah,
season.
it will be. And I don't know when the next one will come out because we need to schedule with Grisha.
Mm.
But we really hope it will be soon because now we have a little more time because we're on holidays. So we will try to deliver that episode to you as soon as possible. But for now, yeah, happy holidays in case we don't see you later in the year. And happy 2019, the year of Star Wars and the year of Rainbow.
Oh, oh my God! I can't believe it. I can't believe 2019 is the official year of Star Wars.
So that's it from us, guys. Thank you so much. Remember that you can follow us on Twitter at Reylo Alliance. you can send us an email to reyloalliance@gmail.com. And you can send us anything from comments to song recommendations to reviews to any questions that you may have. Anything, you can send us anything. You can find us on iTunes, on Spotify, on Stitcher, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And that's it, I think. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for your support. And we will see you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Boy with the haunted eyes, girl with the sunny smile, pining for you. Reach out and touch her hand, you'll finally feel again a home. Far away reaches for you. This is where you begin.